The Lemp Mansion. I had always been drawn to the unknown, to the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of everyday life. It was this curiosity that led me to the Lemp Mansion, a grand yet eerie structure located in the heart of St. Louis, Missouri. The mansion was once home to the affluent Lemp family, who amassed their fortune through their successful brewery. However, their legacy was marred by a series of tragic events that culminated in several family members committing suicide within the mansion's walls. The stories of ghostly sightings and unexplained occurrences intrigued me. I had read countless accounts of the mansion's haunted reputation, disembodied voices, phantom footsteps, and shadowy figures seen roaming the halls. These tales compelled me to experience the mansion's eerie atmosphere firsthand. It was a crisp autumn evening when I arrived at the Lemp Mansion. The air was thick with the scent of fallen leaves, and the sky was painted in hues of orange and purple as the sun began its descent. The mansion loomed before me, its once majestic facade now bearing the scars of time. Ivy crawled up the walls, and the windows, though clean, seemed to reflect a sadness that was almost palpable. As I stepped through the heavy wooden doors, I was greeted by the musty scent of old wood and forgotten memories. The interior was beautifully preserved, a testament to the opulence of the Lemp family's heyday. Ornate chandeliers hung from the ceilings, casting dim pools of light that danced across the polished floors. The silence was profound, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. My guide, a local historian named Emily, met me in the foyer. She was a petite woman with sharp features and an air of quiet authority. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of enthusiasm and respect for the mansion's history. She led me through the grand rooms, recounting the tales of the Lemp family's rise and fall. We began our tour in the parlor, where the family had once entertained their esteemed guests. Emily pointed out the portrait of William J. Lemp, the patriarch who had built the Lemp brewing empire. His eyes seemed to follow me as I moved about the room, an unsettling reminder of the mansion's tragic past. William Lemp was a driven man, Emily explained. But his success came at a great personal cost. The family suffered numerous tragedies, and many believe their spirits still linger here, unable to find peace. From the parlor, we moved to the dining room, where the air seemed heavier, almost oppressive. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper as she recounted the story of William Jr., who had taken over the family business after his father's death. His reign was marked by scandal and heartbreak, ultimately leading to his suicide in one of the upstairs bedrooms. The tragedy didn't end with William Jr., Emily continued. Several other family members met similar fates within these walls. It's said that their restless spirits haunt the mansion, seeking solace in the familiar surroundings of their former home. As we climbed the grand staircase to the second floor, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cool autumn air. The atmosphere grew more oppressive with each step, as if the mansion itself was alive, aware of my presence. We paused outside the bedroom where William Jr. had ended his life. The door was slightly ajar, and I felt an inexplicable urge to peek inside. The room was dimly lit, with heavy drapes drawn over the windows. A large bed dominated the space, its ornate headboard casting long shadows on the walls. As I stepped inside, I felt a sudden drop in temperature, and the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. Emily's voice was barely audible as she spoke. Many visitors report feeling an intense sadness in this room, as if the walls themselves remember the sorrow that took place here. A sudden movement in the corner of the room caught my eye, but when I turned, there was nothing there. My heart raced, and I fought the urge to flee. The atmosphere was suffocating, and I could almost feel the presence of those who had suffered within these walls. I left the room, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere, but the feeling of being watched persisted. As we continued our tour, I couldn't shake the sensation that unseen eyes were following our every move. The mansion, with its rich history and tragic past, seemed to be alive with the echoes of its former inhabitants. By the time we reached the third floor, the sun had set, and the mansion was shrouded in darkness. Emily led me to the attic, a space rumored to be one of the most haunted areas of the house. As she opened the door, a rush of cold air greeted us, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of decay. The attic was cluttered with old furniture and forgotten belongings, a testament to the passage of time. Shadows danced in the corners, and the air was thick with an almost tangible sense of dread. Emily's voice was barely a whisper as she recounted the stories of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena that had been witnessed in this very room. The Lemp Mansion holds many secrets, she said. And those who dare to explore its dark history often find themselves face to face with the spirits that still linger here. As we stood in the attic, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. The air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding settled over me. The Lemp Mansion, with its tragic history and haunted reputation, had cast its spell on me. I knew that this was only the beginning of my journey into the unknown, and that the mansion's dark secrets had yet to fully reveal themselves. The night was far from over, and as I prepared to spend the night within the mansion's walls, I couldn't help but wonder what otherworldly encounters awaited me in the hours to come. I had decided to stay overnight in the Lemp Mansion, a choice that both thrilled and unnerved me. The mansion's dark history seemed to seep into every corner, and as the night deepened, the sense of unease only grew. After Emily left, I made my way to one of the guest rooms on the second floor. The room was quaint and well kept, a stark contrast to the eerie atmosphere that pervaded the rest of the mansion. As I settled into bed, the silence was almost oppressive. I could hear the faint rustle of leaves outside and the occasional creak of the old house settling. Despite my excitement, sleep came fitfully, plagued by unsettling dreams of shadowy figures and whispered voices. Sometime in the dead of night, I was jolted awake by a loud bang. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat up, straining to listen. The room was pitch dark, and the only sound was the blood rushing in my ears. I fumbled for the flashlight I had brought, its weak beam cutting through the darkness. As I scanned the room, everything appeared to be in place. I convinced myself it was just the house settling, though the uneasy feeling lingered. Deciding that sleep would not return easily, I got out of bed and tiptoed to the door. The hallway outside my room was bathed in an eerie half-light, the moon casting long shadows through the windows. I felt a chill run down my spine as I stepped into the corridor, the floorboards creaking underfoot. I wandered through the silent house, drawn by a mix of curiosity and an inexplicable pull towards the unknown. As I approached the staircase, I heard a faint sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. My heart leapt into my throat, and I froze, straining to locate the source of the noise. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the parlor. Summoning my courage, I made my way downstairs, the tapping growing louder with each step. When I reached the parlor, the sound abruptly stopped. I shone my flashlight around the room, the beam catching the edges of furniture and casting strange shadows on the walls. The air was thick with tension, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Then, I saw it, a fleeting glimpse of a figure in the corner of the room. My flashlight flickered, and for a moment, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But the figure was there, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. My pulse raced, and I could feel the icy grip of fear taking hold. The figure moved, gliding silently across the room. I wanted to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. The apparition seemed to be a woman, dressed in an old-fashioned gown. She paused by the fireplace, her form wavering like a mirage. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she was gone, vanishing into the darkness. I stood frozen, my mind racing to make sense of what I had just witnessed. The mansion's haunted reputation suddenly felt all too real. I knew I had to document my experience, to capture every detail before it slipped away like a fading dream. I returned to my room and scribbled furiously in my notebook, my hands trembling. The night seemed endless, and the sense of being watched grew stronger. Every creak and groan of the house set my nerves on edge. As dawn approached, the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. The first light of morning filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow that dispelled some of the night's terrors. Exhausted but exhilarated, I knew that my time at the Lemp Mansion was far from over. The night's events had only deepened my resolve to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within its walls. The Lemp Mansion held many stories, and I was determined to hear them all, even if it meant facing the shadows that lurked in the dark corners of history. The morning sun brought a semblance of normalcy to the Lemp Mansion, but the events of the previous night were etched vividly in my mind. Determined to delve deeper, I decided to explore the mansion more thoroughly, starting with the basement, which was reputed to be another hotspot for paranormal activity. As I descended the narrow staircase to the basement, the air grew colder and more oppressive. The dim light from the single bulb overhead cast long, eerie shadows on the damp stone walls. The basement had once served as a storage area for the Lemp Brewery, and old crates and barrels were still scattered about, remnants of a bygone era. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the distant drip of water. I could feel the weight of history pressing down on me, the tragedies that had unfolded within these walls seeming to permeate the very air. As I walked further into the basement, I noticed an old, rusted door at the far end of the room. Curiosity piqued, I approached it and gently pushed it open. The room beyond was small and cramped, filled with cobwebs and dust. In the center of the room stood an old desk, covered in papers that had yellowed with age. As I sifted through the documents, I realized they were letters and ledgers from the Lemp family's brewery operations. One letter, in particular, caught my eye. It was addressed to William Jr. and spoke of personal matters, hinting at the deep emotional turmoil he had been experiencing. As I read the letter, I felt a sudden chill, as if someone were standing right behind me. I turned quickly, but there was no one there. The sensation of being watched was almost palpable, and I could hear a faint whispering, though I couldn't make out the words. My heart raced, and I had to remind myself to breathe. Deciding to leave the basement for now, I made my way back upstairs. The sunlight streaming through the windows was a welcome relief, but the whispering voices continued to echo in my mind. I felt an irresistible urge to explore the mansion further, convinced that the spirits of the Lemp family were trying to communicate with me. Emily returned later that morning, and I shared my experiences with her. She listened intently, her expression a mix of concern and fascination. "The Lemp Mansion has a way of drawing people in," she said. "Those who are sensitive to the paranormal often feel a strong connection to the spirits here. It sounds like you're one of them." We decided to investigate the mansion's history more deeply, hoping to find clues that might explain the strange occurrences. We combed through old records, photographs, and personal letters, piecing together the tragic story of the Lemp family. Each discovery seemed to bring us closer to understanding the restless spirits that haunted the mansion. One photograph, in particular, stood out. It was an old family portrait, taken in the mansion's parlor. William Jr. stood at the center, flanked by his siblings. Their expressions were solemn, almost resigned, as if they were already bearing the weight of the tragedies that would befall them. As I stared at the photograph, I felt a strange connection to the family, a sense of empathy for the pain they had endured. That evening, Emily and I decided to hold a séance in the parlor, hoping to communicate directly with the spirits. We set up a small table with candles and a Ouija board, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. The room was thick with anticipation as we joined hands and began the séance. At first, there was only silence. But as we concentrated, the planchette began to move, slowly at first, then more deliberately. The air grew colder, and I felt a presence in the room, as if we were not alone. The planchette spelled out a name, William. Emily and I exchanged a glance, our hearts pounding. "William Lemp," I whispered. "Are you here with us?" The planchette moved again, spelling out a single word, "Yes." A chill ran down my spine as I realized we were in the presence of the mansion's most tormented spirit. We continued to ask questions, the planchette spelling out fragmented answers that hinted at the deep sorrow and regret that still lingered in the mansion. As the séance continued, I felt an overwhelming sense of empathy for William and his family. Their spirits were trapped, bound to the mansion by the weight of their unresolved pain. I knew that uncovering the full story of their lives and deaths was the key to understanding the haunting. The séance ended abruptly as the candles flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. The atmosphere was heavy with the lingering presence of the spirits, and I felt a deep connection to the mansion and its tragic history. As Emily and I sat in the darkness, I knew that the Lemp Mansion still had many secrets to reveal, and I was determined to uncover them all. The next morning, the mansion felt even more charged with energy. I couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits were trying to tell me something important. I spent the day poring over more documents and exploring every nook and cranny of the mansion. Each room held its own stories and secrets, and I was determined to uncover them all. As evening fell, Emily and I prepared for one final investigation. We decided to return to the basement, convinced that the key to understanding the hauntings lay there. The atmosphere was even more oppressive than before, and as we descended the stairs, the air grew thick with tension. We set up our equipment, EMF meters, audio recorders, and infrared cameras, hoping to capture any evidence of paranormal activity. As we began our investigation, the temperature dropped sharply, and the EMF meters started to spike. Suddenly, we heard a loud crash from the far end of the basement. We rushed over, our flashlights illuminating the dark corners. There, we found a hidden door, partially obscured by old crates. With great effort, we managed to pry it open, revealing a small, hidden room. The room was filled with old photographs and personal belongings of the Lemp family. It was like stepping into a time capsule, untouched for decades. On a dusty table in the center of the room lay a leather-bound journal. I picked it up carefully, the pages brittle with age. As I opened the journal, I realized it belonged to William Jr. The entries were heartbreaking, detailing his struggles with depression and the immense pressure he felt to uphold the family legacy. The final entry was particularly poignant, written just days before his suicide. "I feel the weight of the world upon me," he had written. "The spirits of my ancestors haunt me, their sorrow a constant reminder of our family's cursed fate. I can no longer bear the pain. I hope that in death, I may find the peace that eludes me in life. As I read the last words, I felt an overwhelming sadness wash over me. It was as if William's spirit was standing beside me, his pain and despair almost tangible. I understood now that the hauntings were not malevolent, but a manifestation of the deep sorrow that permeated the mansion. Emily and I left the hidden room, our minds heavy with the weight of our discoveries. As we ascended the stairs, I felt a sense of closure, as if we had finally uncovered the truth behind the Lemp family's tragic history. That night, as I prepared to leave the Lemp Mansion, I felt a strange sense of peace. The spirits of the Lemp family were still there, but their presence felt different, less restless, more resigned. I knew that I would never forget my time in the mansion, and the profound connection I had felt with its tragic history. As I drove away, the mansion loomed in my rearview mirror, a silent sentinel standing watch over the memories of a family forever bound to its walls. I had come seeking answers, and I had found them, but the experience had changed me in ways I was only beginning to understand. The Lemp Mansion had revealed its secrets to me, and in doing so, had given me a glimpse into the depths of human sorrow and resilience. It was a place where the past and present coexisted, a reminder that some stories are never truly over, but continue to echo through time, waiting to be heard.